All the second stage tanks now pressurized. 35 seconds and counting. We are still 30 seconds and counting. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds. 20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Today, we'll explore the intricacies of decision-making with a particular focus on NASA's approach to solving complex problems. We'll start with the fundamentals of decision-making, examine key frameworks and common pitfalls, and then analyse real-world applications at NASA, including the impact of group dynamics, risk conditions, and international collaboration. Let's begin with an overview. Since its establishment in 1958, NASA has played a leading role in space exploration. Guided by vision and goals to explore the universe, search for life, and inspire future generations, NASA has contributed to the expansion of human knowledge of space, become a global leader in space-related technological innovation, and worked alongside international space agencies to push the boundaries of scientific exploration, maximising overall scientific progress. However, as the agency continues to push these boundaries, such as planning a mission to an asteroid by 2025, it faces scrutiny over its decision-making processes. In high-pressure environments, costs are immense, timelines are tight, and human lives are at stake, meaning effective decision-making is crucial as errors can lead to catastrophic consequences. However, it is challenged by time pressure, uncertainty, and complex and evolving conditions. NASA's decision-making framework has traditionally operated within a structured hierarchical system that prioritises compliance with established protocols, reliance on technical expertise, and a strong focus on risk management. A critical component of this framework is the agency's risk management program, which ensures that all decision-making is both systematic and flexible, where decisions are elevated or delegated to the appropriate level, and essential risk-related information is accessible to all organisations. Despite these structured procedures, events such as the Challenger in 1986 and Columbia in 2003 have exposed significant challenges in NASA's decision-making processes. In both cases, critical technical warnings were either overruled or dismissed as insignificant under managerial pressure, and these cases highlight the difficulty of balancing safety, time constraints, and cost pressures, and serve as stark reminders of the risks associated with strict adherence to protocols at the expense of flexibility. This presentation will examine NASA's decision-making processes, analysing key factors that influence critical choices in high-stakes environments. As Human Resource Manager, I will explore psychological and organisational biases which have contributed to NASA's past failures and examine the human factors in decision-making, highlighting the importance of leadership, communication, and team dynamics in creating an environment where sound decisions can be made under pressure. Our Operations Manager, Dipen Dungal, will examine the diverse types of decisions NASA makes, from routine operational choices to high-risk strategic decisions that have and will shape past and future space exploration missions. Our Risk Assessment Manager, Michael Locke, delves into the decision-making conditions at NASA, highlighting how various levels of risk, uncertainty, and certainty provide their own challenges and how understanding these levels is crucial to effective decision-making. Finally, our Strategic Partnerships Manager, Fergus Parker, will assess the impact of international cooperation and outsourcing on NASA's decision-making. With collaborations becoming more common, this section will explore how external influences shape NASA's strategies, resource allocation, and long-term planning. When was the last time you struggled with a decision? Maybe it was this morning as you pulled all the clothes out of your wardrobe to decide on an outfit. Maybe it was what to have for dinner last night. Or should I hit that snooze button one more time? Simply put, decision-making is the process of making a choice. More specifically, it involves identifying a problem, gathering relevant information, exploring the feasible solutions or alternatives, evaluating them, and selecting the best option. Fergus will now discuss the 3 approaches to decision-making.
There is key management theory that underpins the decision-making process, the first being the rational model. A rational decision maker can make logical decisions consistently to make sure that they are maximizing the value of their product/service. To be a rational decision maker, you need to be able to face the challenges and be able to attack them logically and think clearly to come to a well-versed outcome with clearly set goals to achieve. The decision maker also needs to be open to all options and fully know all the possibilities and their outcomes. This model provides some advantages and disadvantages. That is, the rational model provides a clear framework to follow. Procedures are streamlined, which can improve overall decision efficiency. The rational model also relies on the fact that and does not take into consideration emotions. Decisions are therefore credible and reliable. On the other hand, rational decision making can be time consuming and delay quick decision making. The quality model of decision making is used more within the workplace as it is more realistic. This is due to it taking into account that managers are only as rational within their limits of their own abilities. The outcome of the decision making is called satisficing, which means good enough to solve the issue. The decision maker sits down and goes over all the options that are good enough to solve the issue and chooses their best choice for the matter. This model understands the limits of humans, which means decisions are realistic. However, good enough choices may result in a decision being satisfactory but not the best option possible. Intuitive decision making is the matter of making decisions on the basis of past experiences and situations. There are 5 different aspects of intuition, these being experience-based decisions, affect-initiated decisions, cognitive-based decisions, subconscious mental processing, and values or ethics-based decision-making. All these parts make a strong intuitive decision maker. Dippin will now elaborate on intuition, apply it to NASA, and discuss 2 types of decision managers face: programmed versus non-programmed decisions.
Thank you, Fergus. Let's look at intuition further and how it applies to NASA. As Fergus highlighted, intuition in management is the ability of using our past experiences to make decisions or be very systematic to formal analysis. When managers encounter uncertainty or time pressure, or are faced with complex situations where logical reasoning may be insufficient to generate a straightforward answer, it comes into play. Intuition is built over years of experience as leaders begin to see the patterns and make decisions on instinct that are fast but not blind. To begin with, in the NASA case study, intuition worked positively and negatively. Seasoned engineers at Morton Thinkol had an instinct that launching the Challenger in bone-chilling temperatures was not safe. Their instincts honed by decades of work on rocket boosters, prompting them to caution against the launch. But NASA managers dismissed their concerns, leaning instead on a procedural decision-making process that would prove disastrous. In the Columbia disaster, as well as the instances before it happened, NASA had gotten used to the incidents of foam debris hitting the space shuttle and wrongly saw them as not important, even though the dangers were growing gradually. This mistaken belief in events played a part in causing the tragic event. Even though intuition can be useful in managing situations, what happened at NASA shows that there are boundaries to its usefulness. When applied properly, intuition aids managers in dealing with uncertainties and arriving at decisions. However, when intuition is based on flawed assumptions, it can hinder decision-making, which is why it is important to challenge existing beliefs to ensure better outcomes. The programmed or non-programmed models are used to explain some types of decisions managers faced. Programmed decision-making is about making decisions based off procedures already in place. Think safety checks or scheduled spacecraft maintenance routines as example of this process in action. These decisions involve cut routine problems that have straightforward solutions to follow. On the other side are non-programmed decisions. These are the ones that pop up unexpectedly and require some serious critical thinking and judgment calls because there is no set playbook to rely upon for guidance. These types of decisions typically come into play when dealing with high-stakes scenarios like managing missions, mishaps, or strategizing for space exploration. NASA depends on program decisions in the day-to-day running of a mission, carrying out maintenance of new spacecraft and in training of astronauts. Well-documented, standardized workflows help ensure efficiency, minimize risks, and maintain consistency. For instance, engineers maintain strict adherence to prescribed procedures for the space shuttle during the pre-launch activities. To keep spaceflight rocket science simple, NASA uses program decisions to reduce mistakes and enhance mission safety. Non-program decisions are essential in crisis situations and in complex, high-reward environments. The Challenger disaster was the result of bad non-program decision-making. Managers ignored the engineers concerned about safety and were eager to launch on schedule despite the risk. The Columbia accident was caused by a failure to evaluate and respond to the repeat issue of foam debris strikes. NASA also makes many decisions outside of any given program in making plans, such as the exploration of Mars or partnerships with commercial companies. Mission success in these situations depends on flexibility, innovation, and a thoughtful approach to risk. Michael will now discuss the 8-step process to decision-making and how it affects NASA.
Thank you, Daipen. As seen at NASA, the consequences of decisions can have profound implications. To assist an organization to make informed choices, the 8-step decision-making process is an effective tool to follow and is based on the rational model. Let us briefly apply this model to NASA. Step 1. Identify the problem. This step allows organizations to recognize and/or determine the key issues. Understanding the problem is critical for effective decision-making. NASA had to make a critical decision regarding launching the Challenger shuttle as engineers had serious concerns about safety due to cold weather conditions. Step 2. Identify decision criteria. The decision criteria guide the decision-making process and include factors that are important for the decision. Examples of decision criteria for NASA include crew safety, adhering to launch schedule, the reliability of rocket booster seals, and financial considerations. Step 3. Allocate weights to decision criteria. This step allows organizations to assign importance to each criterion. NASA incorrectly weighted the safety criteria of lower level importance to mission launch. That is, NASA ranked more on schedule and cost than safety. Step 4. List alternatives. This step allows an organization to list options to address the problem. For NASA, the alternatives were to proceed with the launch, delay the launch to address safety concerns, and/or change the design of the rocket boosters. Step 5. Evaluate alternatives. This step allows organizations to assess each alternative that best meets the decision criteria. NASA elevated the options but ignored the engineers' safety concerns. They focused on the launch schedule and overlooked the risk associated with cold weather. Step 6. Determine best alternative. This step allows organizations to select the alternative that meets the decision criteria. NASA decided the best alternative was to proceed with the launch despite safety concerns. Step 7. Implement the alternative. This step allows an organization to implement the decision by using action, plans, assigning responsibilities to team members, and allocating necessary resources. NASA launched Challenger on January 28, 1986. Step 8. Evaluate the decision and its effectiveness. This step allows organizations to assess the decision's outcome and helps highlight areas of improvement. The evaluation took place after the Challenger disaster. A thorough review of NASA's policies and procedures was needed as they disregarded important safety warnings. In summary, the 8-step decision-making process is an effective tool for identifying uncertainty, managing risks, and making decisions that meet both short-term and long-term goals. As seen at NASA, if this process is not carefully followed or understood, it can have a devastating outcome. Ashley will now look at common errors in decision-making and how these can affect our choices.
Thank you, Michael. Cognitive biases can heavily influence decision making and significantly impact the quality of choices we make. Common errors in decision making stem from these biases that distort judgment. Overconfidence, anchoring, and availability biases emerge because the brain favours familiarity and simplicity, even at the cost of accuracy. Framing effects and confirmation biases arise from a tendency to seek patterns and reinforce existing beliefs, making objective analysis difficult. Escalation of commitment and the sunk cost fallacy persist because individuals struggle to accept losses, preferring to justify past investments. Additionally, people rely on mental shortcuts to process information quickly, which can lead to systematic errors. Heuristics are mental shortcuts that enable quick decisions by focusing on the most important information, especially in complex situations. They are useful in fast-paced or uncertain environments, relying on intuition, knowledge, and personal experience to make effective decisions. However, while they do help avoid overthinking, they can also lead to faulty judgments, as they may reinforce existing biases, rely on incomplete or misleading data, or make assumptions that do not apply to the new situation. When time is not limited and complete information is available, it is better to avoid heuristics and consider the facts thoroughly. To overcome biases and improve decision-making, individuals can consider multiple perspectives, avoid rush judgments, reflect on past decisions, and rely on objective data instead of subjective influences. Being aware of these biases and knowing when to utilize heuristics means people can make informed, balanced, and effective decisions. Deepan will now highlight the structured versus unstructured problems at NASA.
Thank you, Ashley. NASA has faced structured problems such as routine and expected tasks like maintaining spacecraft, launching satellites, and adhering to safety regulations. NASA uses checklists, automated systems, along with experienced personnel to effectively manage these problems. They follow established procedures as well as engineering standards. NASA guarantees each mission has consistency, and NASA keeps all running tasks to a minimum by depending on certain ways of doing things. NASA consistently uses firm protocols, detailed checklists, and a set of procedures to deal with all structured problems. Routine operations such as spacecraft maintenance and satellite launches are managed through standardized engineering and safety regulations. Experienced personnel and multiple automated systems help guarantee the execution of each of these tasks is efficient and risk-free. NASA maintains thorough running reliability and complete mission consistency by relying on all structured processes. Unstructured problems, however, they appear without warning and need real thought and flexibility. Flawed decision-making caused by the Challenger disaster in 1986, in addition to the Columbia disaster in 2003, this decision-making ignored the safety concerns to maintain schedules. NASA, collaborating with private companies, must plan future missions to Mars and navigate budget constraints, which are continuing unstructured challenges. For mission success and to prevent any failures, flexible strategies, and truly open communication and genuinely continuous learning are needed in these situations. Unstructured problems need flexibility, important thinking, and adaptability. Moreover, NASA conducts a wide range of investigations into each unexpected failure, like the Challenger and Columbia disasters, to identify all causes and make improved choices. Hence, organizations must balance efficiency, cost, and safety, ensuring that past mistakes are applied to future missions, and to understand unstructured problems demand a proactive approach for long-term success. Michael will now discuss 3 decision-making conditions at NASA.
Thank you, Deepan. NASA has ambitious space aviation goals, highlighting the critical levels of decision-making conditions. Organizations often operate under varying certainty, risk, and uncertainty. These conditions each present distinct challenges that can significantly impact outcomes. Certainty occurs when outcomes are determined using all information provided. Previous missions at NASA highlight that NASA has established protocols guiding routine operations, creating certainty in their activities. Numerous authors highlight the importance of having clear rules and guidelines to assist organizations in managing risks effectively. The Challenger and Columbia disasters showed that these mission certainty levels comprised limited and overlooked information. The certainty levels were therefore limited. Risk occurs when decision makers know some potential outcomes but still face uncertainty. When examining the Columbia disaster in 2003, NASA knew that the foam insulation might become detached and damage the shuttle's thermal tiles. Despite this known risk, they decided to launch, making it a calculated risk. This decision demonstrates a critical flaw in risk assessment. The outcome of accepting these risks were deemed too low to be significant in the decision-making process. This approach would prove to be a fatal mistake. Similarly, engineers at Morton Thiokol voiced their concerns about launching in cold weather. They concluded that the solid rocket booster seals were not safe to use. Management disregarded these risks, which resulted in a fatal explosion. Vaughan highlights that the culture inside NASA promoted time and money over safety. In addition, this decision demonstrates how organizational constraints can lead to high-risk decisions in which identified risks are overlooked or miscategorized. Uncertainty exists when decision makers lack complete information. NASA's future missions, such as sending astronauts to Mars by 2030 and reaching an asteroid by 2025, comprise high levels of uncertainty as these are groundbreaking missions. These high levels of uncertainty will create high levels of risk. NASA also recognizes the importance of expanding international cooperation and outsourcing responsibilities to private organizations. These partnership decisions create even more uncertainty about how they will affect NASA's operations and decision-making procedures. Author Kirkpatrick examines how collaboration with foreign partners and private organizations can result in innovative solutions. However, it also complicates decision-making due to competing agendas, operational norms, and differing quality standards. By understanding the conditions in which NASA makes its decisions, the risk elements low, moderate, and high can be further determined, assisting with decision-making. The risk matrix table may also lead to a programmed decision where if there are too high levels of risk or uncertainty, the mission should be suspended until more information is gathered and any decision reviewed is with more certainty. Risk factors are associated with not prioritizing safety. All concerns must be addressed prior to making decisions. An organization's culture often results in the normalization of deviance, highlighting shortcuts to meet deadlines are not a valid option given the risk of human life. Open communication is imperative to prevent crucial red flags. Team members and experts must be involved in the decision-making process. Detailed risk assessment procedures must be established and followed. Organizations should review and update their processes to reflect new knowledge and conditions. NASA found that comprehensive risk management was necessary post-Challenger. Future missions should use flexible and contingency plans to respond to uncertainty and red flags. NASA needs to be ready to adapt to the challenges of space travel. Learning from past failures is crucial as it helps identify biases and assumptions. NASA established an integrated review process for risk assessment post-Challenger and Columbia, but ongoing evaluation is necessary to prevent similar mistakes in the future. In summary, NASA's decision-making conditions will always include varying levels of risk, certainty, and uncertainty. Risk and uncertainty provide unique challenges. Understanding these conditions allows NASA to improve its decision-making processes. The lessons from previous catastrophes highlight the importance of prioritizing safety, encouraging open communication, establishing risk management processes, and being willing to improve through continuous learning. Ashley will now discuss groupthink and escalation of commitment at NASA.
Groupthink is a mode of thinking in which individuals overlook potential problems to reach a conclusion that represents perceived group consensus, regardless of whether they believe it's right. Often, consensus is reached without individuals applying critical thinking or evaluating the consequences of alternatives. This is because they often self-censor, which creates a group dynamic where creativity and individuality are stifled to avoid disrupting group harmony and avoid creating conflict. Escalation of commitment refers to the tendency for people to keep investing in a previous decision, believing that additional effort, time, and resources will eventually lead to a favourable outcome. This happens when individuals or organisations persist with a decision because they've already invested significant resources and don't want to feel like those were wasted. So instead of reassessing the situation objectively, they double down, hoping things will turn around. For example, a company might keep funding a project that's failing because they've already spent millions on it, or a gambler keeps betting after losing because they eventually think they'll win it back. This behaviour is influenced by factors such as the sunk cost fallacy, which is the belief that past investments justify further commitment, and it's also influenced by the fear of admitting failure. The Challenger disaster in 1986 is a well-known example of groupthink occurring, where the pressure to maintain consensus and meet deadlines led to catastrophic failure in decision-making. As I explained, groupthink is a flawed process of decision-making that occurs when groups prioritise cohesion and agreement over critical thinking, often due to strong pressures leading to poor choices to overlook risks and alternative perspectives. This mindset was evident in the Challenger disaster in 1986, where various factors reinforced the tendency to ignore warnings and proceed with the launch. NASA and Morton Thiokol, the engineering company for the rocket boosters used for the shuttle, wound up various internal and external pressures to ensure that a Challenger shuttle launched on time. As a result, when the engineers warned that the O-rings could fail in the cold, NASA officials downplayed these concerns and pushed forward with the launch. Because multiple launch delays had already occurred and NASA was eager to protect its public reputation and meet political commitments, there was a strong pressure to conform, and this caused decision makers to just dismiss the warnings. As a result, on January 28, 1986, the Challenger broke apart just 73 seconds after liftoff, killing all 7 of its passengers. This was due to the failure of the O-rings. This tragedy underscores the importance of encouraging open discussion, critically evaluating risks, and fostering an organisational culture where concerns can be raised without fear of backlash to prevent similar catastrophic failures in the future. NASA's continued risky launches, despite clear warning signs, can be seen as escalation of commitment, persisting with a failing course of action due to previous investments of time, money, resources, and reputation. After the Challenger disaster, NASA faced intense scrutiny, yet similar decision-making patterns were visible in the lead-up to the Columbia disaster of 2003. Rather than fully addressing the safety concerns, the organisation continued launching shuttles while accepting risks that, in hindsight, were critical warning signs. Escalation of commitment occurs when individuals or organisations feel compelled to justify their previous decisions rather than reconsider their approach. In NASA's case, the pressure to maintain the shuttle program, meet political and financial commitments, and uphold public confidence contributed to the continuation of risky launches. Even when engineers were raising concerns, such as the foam shedding issue that ultimately caused the Columbia disaster, NASA officials dismissed the risks, partially due to the belief that previous missions had survived with similar issues. This pattern highlights how sunk costs and external pressures can push organisations into flawed decision-making, reinforcing the idea that changing course would be more costly than pressing forward. The tragic outcomes of both Challenger and Columbia illustrate the dangers of ignoring warning signs and persisting in risky behaviour instead of making necessary changes to ensure safety. These disasters also highlighted the importance of encouraging open discussion and differences within teams. Organisations must foster a culture where, when an employee raises concern, they are taken seriously rather than dismissed due to external pressures or a desire for consensus. Without a culture that values critical thinking and diverse perspectives, decision-making becomes prone to overconfidence and rationalisation, where past successes create a false sense of security and lead to a complacency in risk assessment. Additionally, organisations must establish and uphold structured decision-making processes that prioritise evidence-based analysis over conformity. Independent reviews, diverse viewpoints, and clear checks and balances can help reduce biases and prevent avoidable errors. These disasters also illustrate the dangers of escalation of commitment, where organisations persist with a failing course of action due to prior investments rather than reassessing the situation based on current and future risks. To avoid the sunk cost fallacy, businesses must remain flexible and willing to change direction, ensuring that past resources spent do not dictate future choices. Moreover, external pressures such as deadlines, reputation, or financial commitments should never take precedence over safety and ethical considerations. Suppressing concerns or discouraging differing opinions in the name of efficiency can lead to catastrophic consequences, as seen in NASA's decision to proceed with the Challenger launch despite engineer warnings. True organizational success comes from learning from past mistakes, not just by acknowledging failures, but by actively implementing changes to prevent them from reoccurring. By recognizing the dangers of groupthink and escalation of commitment, organizations can build a culture of transparency, accountability, and adaptability. Leaders must create an environment where concerns can be raised without fear of backlash, ensuring that rational, well-informed decisions take priority over political, financial, or reputational pressures. Learning from NASA's mistakes can help organizations develop resilient, high-performing teams that prioritize success and safety. Fergus will now discuss the impact of international cooperation and outsourcing on NASA's decision-making.
NASA has many international relationships with various other space agencies. This includes SpaceX, Boeing, European Space Agency, Roscosmos, JAXA, and other private companies. Through these partnerships, NASA can enhance its scientific research through technology sharing, cost distribution for larger scale projects like International Space Station and the Artemis program. NASA has started to rely on outsourcing tasks more regularly through the private companies such as SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Boeing for spacecraft development, launch services, and satellite operations. Through this outsourcing, it helps NASA keep their operations costs lower, improve their productivity, and leverage technological progressions from the private sector. This helps NASA to be able to put more of its resources into deeper space missions. There are many more opportunities for complications when NASA is dealing with international partners. This leads to more complex negotiations and consensus building. NASA must also make sure that they comply with the US government policies, international agreements, and export control laws. Using private contractors delegates responsibilities away from NASA, creating decision-making powers outside of NASA. This requires careful oversight. Trust in external roles creates more moving parts within the company, and this can create complexities for the company. NASA faces several challenges when navigating international cooperation and outsourcing. Some factors that create challenges for NASA. One of the major issues is the size and complexity of the company. NASA must oversee a vast number of departments. This through the contractors that they hire need to be trustworthy and have strong leadership skills to be able to look after multiple departments. Managers at NASA need to be able to be self-dependent due to the large scale of the company. Cost and budget control is another major factor for NASA's outsourcing. And international partnerships can sometimes lead to exceeding budgets, unexpected expenses, or financial problems that could affect long-term planning. NASA must try to balance cost-saving benefits with the potential risks. When relying on external entities such as SpaceX and Boeing, NASA must run off their schedule. NASA also does not have full control over the quality or technical decisions. This can lead to delays or failures in equipment. This can also create more work for NASA, as they have to make sure that these outsourced projects meet their high safety standard, as private companies may not have these high standards. As NASA continue to expand its missions and embrace further technological advancements that they are affiliating companies are making, international cooperation and outsourcing will become even more important for NASA. NASA has many upcoming missions that they are looking into, such as lunar constellation, Mars exploration, and deep space missions. If NASA want to stay at the forefront of space exploration, it is critical that they strengthen their global partnerships and leverage in the private sector to be able to continue to remain at the forefront of space exploration. The ever-growing advancements in AI, automation, and robots will help to improve decision-making efficiency. This will help to reduce the need for manual processes and help have faster responses to challenges. Along with this, private companies such as SpaceX and Blue Origin develop reusable rockets and new space technologies. NASA can turn its focus towards research and longer-term exploration and scientific discoveries. As NASA grows, it must also make sure that they improve their risk management to make sure that they continue to maintain a strong oversight over the outsourced projects, balancing cost efficiency with safety and reliability to ensure that they can continue to progress in the space exploration industry. In the future, for NASA to continue to dominate the industry will come down to how well they are able to adapt to the quickly changing and ever-evolving space industry. Being able to manage complex partnerships and integrate cutting-edge technologies. If NASA are able to navigate these challenges, NASA will continue to push the boundaries for space exploration, paving the way for new interplanetary missions. Michael will now conclude our presentation.
Thank you, Fergus, Ashley, and Daipen for a comprehensive review on decision making that can not only be adopted to NASA, but other high-stakes environments. In conclusion, the Columbia and the Challenger tragedies demonstrate the importance of effective decision making. NASA's high-pressure space exploration role requires so many decision-making steps and variables that even the slightest error could lead to a significant catastrophe. Due to its unpredictable environment, NASA's management faces both structured and unstructured challenges under uncertainty. Structured decisions are interrelated with program decision-making. These enable decision-makers to follow procedures. Unstructured decisions can be connected to non-program choices, requiring a more adaptable decision-making approach. The Challenger and Columbia disasters require a more rational and structured decision-making approach, such as the 8-step decision-making process. By understanding intuition, NASA can avoid common errors and biases that hinder effective decision-making. The issues of groupthink and escalation of commitment in previous decisions reveal the necessity of a culture that promotes open communication and values diverse viewpoints, ensuring that all voices are heard and considered. As NASA seeks international partnerships and outsourcing, this can introduce new perspectives for saving money for enhancing productivity. However, this could also add risks to future missions, introducing variables outside of NASA's control and experience such as quality control. To ensure more informed and effective decisions in future missions at NASA, the following recommendations are made. Firstly, NASA undertakes regular risk assessments and prioritizes key risk factors. Along with NASA, promotes a safety culture throughout the organization. And lastly, NASA provides sufficient training to recognize and alleviate biases, uncertainty, and risks.